Hi, this is Jeff Thompson. I'm a candidate for the United States Congress, Congressional District 9, State of Arizona. I want to talk today about creating jobs and economic recovery. I want to first talk a little bit about our current economic situation and the plight that we face. First of all, the national debt's going to surpass $16 trillion before year end. It is growing at a rate of $4.1 billion a day. In addition, the deficit is $1.3 trillion. That simply means of all the tax revenue that the government gets, all of our tax dollars we send in, not just income tax, but again, we're taxed 47 different ways, that they're spending $1.3 trillion more this year than they're taking in. First of all, every time a tax dollar comes in, 40 cents of every dollar goes just to debt service on our national debt. When they go ahead and pay the debt service and they pay for all of the entitlement programs, there's nothing left. That leaves the entire cost of the government, which is about $1.5 trillion. So the deficit is $1.3 trillion this year. The first thing we need to do, and the first thing I'll propose if you elect me, is that all members of Congress, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the President of the United States, if they do not operate on a balanced budget every year that they're in office, they will no longer be eligible for re-election. A lot of people say, how do you bring everybody together and how do you get everybody to work? If you tell them that they will no longer be eligible for re-election if they do not balance a budget, you'll be surprised how quickly they work together. The next thing we have to do is we have to create jobs, and the first stifling thing that has to be dealt with is regulation. The government has way too many strings attached on their regulation of the business environment. There's so many business people that are on the sidelines because when they look at the risk versus reward of how much risk is there that I have to put forward versus the reward I can get, it's out of balance. Remember, business owners to start a business typically go down to the bank and they have to pledge their assets, the equity in their home, their pension plan, their stocks, their bonds, their investment portfolio. They have to pledge that to the bank. So if their business goes south, they lose all of that. The employees don't lose anything, the business owners do. There's a lot of risk there, and that's why they're entitled to the rewards, because they put all the risk up. If the risk-reward is out of balance, business owners are going to say, I'm not going to start a business. I'm not going to expand my business. There's too much risk. We have to reduce the regulation. The government regulation has a stranglehold on the business environment, and that's really hurting job creation right now. That needs to be dealt with first. Dodd-Frank is a bad piece of legislation. That doesn't mean there's not good things in Dodd-Frank, but it means in general, when you look at the entire piece of legislation, it's not good for the job market. That has to be dealt with first. Second, we have to reduce corporate income tax. We have one of the highest corporate income tax rates in the world. When you tax individual businesses, you're taxing all of the consumers out there. Because when a business has a higher expense, they pass it on to all the consumers in a higher cost for their goods and services. So when you see the government say, oh, those businesses, they're making too much money, we need to tax them more, remember, that tax is on the American public. We've got to reduce the corporate tax rate. It'll drop prices for all of us in goods and service. It'll help them with the ability to make a profit. Thus, they'll want to go back and put more people to work and take more risk because there's suddenly more reward. Those two things are paramount. Another thing that we need to do is we need to bring home as many people in our military as possible. We have 58,000 in Germany, we have 23,000 in Korea, and we've got thousands all over the world. If we can bring as many of those people home as possible, and we could set up military bases along our border, it would enhance security along the border, which we desperately need. But again, all those people, if we had 100,000 of those people back in our country, they'd be spending all their money in our country instead of abroad. And if countries abroad feel so strongly, and if we feel so strongly that they need our presence for security, we need to charge for it. The American public and the American taxpayer should no longer pay for having our troops abroad. Those countries need to step up to the table and pay the price for that security. We're in a desperate situation here, and we have got to pull in all spending as possible. That will also help create jobs in this country. We need a tax repatriation holiday for all the money that's offshore because of our poorly thought out tax legislation. We need to allow all that money to come back into this country without paying a 35% tax. Let's let it come back in with no tax, with one stipulation. 25% of the money that comes back in needs to go towards job creation. So those business owners that have their money in out of this country banks, offshore banks, they can bring it back into these banks, they can bring it back into our economy, they can help put 25% of that money to work for job creation. Again, that's going to create jobs immediately. And the next thing we have to do is we have to look at the oil industry. It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything to allow the oil industries to drill oil. We've got to allow drilling permits for American companies, not Brazil, not Colombia like the President Obama has done. We need to allow American companies to drill, and we need to allow the Keystone Pipeline to be approved. It's instant jobs. The more oil that we have in abundance, there'll be no more speculation of prices going up because there'll be abundance. They won't speculate. They'll speculate the opposite way, that prices are going to go down. It's supply and demand. It's very simple. I was in that industry for 25 years. The bottom line is, as prices of oil go down, it costs less to ship goods and services. You're going to have more money in your pockets because you'll be paying less at the gas pump. It won't cost you $80 to fill your car up. And you'll have more money to spend in the economy. It will help the economy. It will help create jobs. It will help us with economic recovery. And it's very, very important that we do those things. If we do those 5 things right there, it's going to make an enormous difference in helping us towards economic recovery. The other big piece of this, though, without this, all the things I just mentioned aren't going to help. We have to make spending cuts. Our government has a huge appetite for spending money. We need to give them a gastric bypass surgery on their spending. We've got to cut down their appetite for spending money. We've got to really look hard into all programs, nothing's off the table, and make some strong cuts. There's going to be some pain. A lot of people say, there won't be pain. There's going to be pain. But it's better that everybody suffers a little bit of pain than to let this ship sink with all of us on it. You can go on my website, jeffthompsonforcongress.com. You can see a lot more information than this on there. I think the main reason you should vote for me is the exact reason why I'm running. We need to send business people back to Washington, D.C. that are willing to draw a line in the sand and make some tough decisions. I'm not politically oriented. I've never had political aspirations. It makes me different than all my opponents. The politicians got us into this mess. Let's please not vote for any more politicians to go back there and perpetuate the mess. It's time that we send some business people back there that have been successful in business, that are willing to do and make the tough decisions we need to get our country back on track. Thanks so much for your time. Please visit my website again, jeffthompsonforcongress.com. I appreciate your support. Thank you.